You're listening to the Modern Saxophonist Podcast.
Welcome to the Modern Saxophonist Podcast. I'm your host, Mark MacArthur, and today we are doing something completely new because we are on video. And I am joined by my buddy, Dave Camwell. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great, Mark. Very pleased to be here again.
Yeah, again.
Although this time, having the video, I think, is going to be pretty cool. So
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And you know, the first time we had you on, it was such a pleasure getting to know you. And you know, we've had so many great conversations since. Just because I don't know, man. This sport we love, hockey, has kind of got us talking a little bit. And I did want to just mention that you know, you look good in that goalie gear. I got to say.
Well, you know, my secondary career, as I like to call it, or checking it off the bucket list. But for those of you that haven't seen it, you can. I've got a great new picture of me in my gear, where I look shockingly just like Mika Kiprasov, but holding a saxophone. So it's a nice little bit of everything that I do.
Oh, I haven't even seen that one yet.
Oh, you haven't seen that, Mark? Oh,
no, I haven't even seen it yet. No.
Oh, it's the best. It's my profile picture. I'm going to keep it up for weeks now. It's just, It's hilarious.
Fair enough. Everybody's got to go to Dave's Facebook page.
Oh, here we go.
Check it out. Come on now. Come on. You got to give the brother some love. He gets out there and he officially desires to have this round puck shot at him at about, well, I don't know, in that league, it's probably not 100 miles an hour, but I don't know.
Well, sometimes it is. You know, I mean, certainly desires and even pays money out of his own pocket to have people fire at me. Yep. So, this crazy thing we call life. So, Yeah, I've wanted to do that since, basically moving to Canada when I was 7 and just getting immersed in hockey culture. So, and I think it's great, frankly, just to have some hobbies outside of music. I mean, all of us in music and saxophone world are so, sort of focused on that, and I think that's great. But it's also a nice thing to have something outside of that for a bit of a release as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And definitely, I have to say, it's always been sports for me. I mean, I'm a golfer, so I enjoy a good round of golf, and that's been my escape. But certainly watching sports, man. My dad and I, that's basically the way we've connected for years. So good stuff.
Yep.
And one of them was yesterday. I just gotta say it. We're here, and yesterday was the epic Super Bowl. 51. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. What a game. What a comeback. Unbelievable.
Unreal. I mean, I am not a Belichick fan. I am not a Brady fan. It's just I just have such a hard time with anything Boston sports being from Tampa Bay. But that guy's the best. You got to say he's the best.
You cannot argue with those results. So, I mean, I personally, it's one of those things. I'm not a huge football fan, but I mean, I was hoping for a good game, and oftentimes there's sort of blowouts and not great. So it was nice to see one as exciting and close, and I mean, there's so many storylines that were interesting.
That's right. Well, I've got to, I got to get the pain over with right now, folks. Because I got to get it cut early. I got to tell you a story here, and I'm going to try to be quick with it, but it's so blatantly obvious and painful that it might not be so quick. The other day, here we are, and the whole point of this episode is technology, and so here we are talking the other day. And
I'm not just talking, recording.
Recording. Well, one of us was recording. So Dave's recording on his end, and here we are having the spirited amazing conversation about technology that we're going to have again right now. And I forgot to push record. How ironic. Here I am. Here I am, the podcaster who's talking about technology and why, you'll get to hear what we're going to say. And lo and behold, I make the epic mistake of not pushing record. All right. Dave, I am, from the bottom of my heart, deeply sorry for that time that was squandered. Maybe not squandered. It certainly gave this story. I think there's a few people out there that could probably sympathize with me. Hopefully not as many as one might think, but at least everybody can sympathize.
Yeah, it's one of those life lessons, right? I'm sure you'll never make that mistake again.
Dave, there's a lot of learning going on here. A lot of learning.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, let's try again, shall we? Should we talk about some technology?
Let's do it. We're going to talk tech, folks.
All right.
And Dave, you have been just in everything that I've seen, because you're not just the saxophone extraordinaire. You're not only the goalie with the most. You are you actually are this technology guru, and so much so you actually teach some of it at Simpson. So do you mind? I mean, I guess the first thing is you. In a broad overview or anything else, I know that some of this episode was spawned by just a desire, hey, we probably should all get a little bit better at technology, and maybe we should do a podcast on this. So what are some of your thoughts about just the general aspect of technology and saxophone?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think technology can be helpful in sort of two large areas. One is certainly as a musician, helping us to play and teach at our finest, and to have really that be terrifically helpful and assisting in that regard. And then, of course, the other side is the entrepreneurship side, the side that, I've done something cool and I would like maybe outside of my parents to actually see it. That sort of aspect too. So, the most recent thing for sure has been video editing. And of course, everyone with their Mac or, has some kind of basic level, either Windows Movie Maker or iMovie. But the thing that really I think is more interesting and frankly more helpful, particularly in today's sort of media, very saturated environment, is to be able to do either multicam videos or being able to have much more power over the final result, the final video that you create. And so I really like Adobe Premiere Pro. I think that's a terrific program, and you're right. I teach it now as a May-term course. We have a 3-week course at the end of the year, and it's been massively popular. I'm very thankful for that. I'm actually teaching 2 sections of it, and it fills up right away. And so fabulous, and I find it very enjoyable to teach. But I think my suggestion is for people to maybe think outside of just iMovie, because in many ways that's limiting. There's only so much you can do, and I think sort of the days of a single camera, static, not moving scene. I suppose in some ways it's better than nothing for sure, but it's maybe not as difficult as you might think to really add an extra element of panache or splash or frankly interest. There's so many. If you go on YouTube, there's so many videos. Let's say you put in Glazunov or one of the standard rep pieces, Tableau de Provence, something like that. And how do you make your video stand out? And of course, this is all under the supposition that musically it's as good as it can be. Really, if you don't have a good musical product, there's really not much reason to do anything with it. So I'm not saying at all that the technology kind of supplants the musical intensity or integrity in any way. But I do think if you've got a great product, the next step is to, how do people hear it? Just because there are so many very, very high-level players And so for me, that was sort of the crux of why I got interested in that, particularly with the video editing side.
Wow. I think you're onto something, because it's so interesting to scroll through Facebook, and I think in a lot of ways that's just where some of us generally land to just do some of our general content. It's not. I find these days if I go to YouTube, I'm just going there specifically to find something versus it being my main hub of where I'm at. And so in that, Facebook always has like those pre-rolls without the sound so that you can see what's going on. And it is interesting to see a static video shot, and then all of a sudden, you see one that's nice and well done. It makes me want to click on it for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it's titling or, as I said earlier, for me, it's multicam, having more than one camera on, and I think that's a great thing. Also, Facebook is really cool in terms of the Facebook Live happening now, where you can basically web stream, webcast very easily. And also, I just saw Zoom, which is a great audiovisual company. Actually, you and I both have the Q8. No, we're not sponsored, but it's a nice little camera. They have an add-on, actually, which is basically designed for iPhone, and I'm sure Android, they have a version of that too, where you can do the Facebook Live thing, but have much better audio. So I think it's the i3 or something like that. It's on the Zoom page, but companies are taking note of this, and every year it gets better. I think I'll probably buy one, and we do a lot of that webcasting for the Jazz Festival and Jazz Camp that I run as well. So, so
that live stream.
Yeah, exactly. It was just basically off my iPad Pro, but as I say, every year technology gets better, and ideally we stay up with it and be aware of it and use it to help us.
I agree. That is when we to help us, and then one of the things, everything that you're saying is a beautiful end product, because I'm actually thinking that as we want to step into something like that, have a beautiful camera shot that emphasizes, and maybe we mute the colors a little bit, make it seem a little more Baroque as we play this Bach prelude or something, and here we are thinking about doing all of this, but there's an awful lot of technology steps and knowledge and trials, and I have to say too, maybe a few tribulations along the way. And, and so do you happen to have, I think right now what we're kind of doing is breaking it down a little bit backwards for a moment, but in the steps, is there anything that you have advice for the people that maybe haven't even dealt with technology before in this way, and they can see that end product, but they're a little bit terrified of having to walk through that process?
Sure. Well, and again, I think there's two sides of it. There's the advertising side, the where you're creating a product and you want to show it off, so to speak, and then there's of course the same thing for using it. And for example, people might be a little bit nervous with, say, using iPads, or how do I do that? That's one of the questions I get asked the most, surprisingly, about using that now. And so again, and I'll just clearly state with much disappointment, I'm not sponsored by either of these companies, as much as we'd love to be sponsored by Apple.
Me too.
But so the iPad Pro, you see this. This is, I really think, in many ways, a game changer. And with most things, Apple, I have to say, is really well designed, and there really shouldn't be a fear factor at all. And there you are. Mark's got his. Yeah. I mean, the apps are so intuitive. I think maybe the major thing that stops people is maybe the cost, certainly. Although, I mean, I certainly justified mine. I mean, it's about roughly $1,000 or so when I bought it. But with the amount that I use it, when I think about the cost of it per minute whether I'm using it for music or just general email or a game or whatever. It's certainly a piece of tech that I can absolutely justify. And then, of course, pairing it with these air turn pedals. These are the original pedals, actually, when they first came out. I guess I'm sort of an early adopter, the BT105, but they have certain lots of newer models, but these still work out great. I think when it comes to the art that you create, it's worth the effort, I think. And I know players who are just people who just prefer to stay with paper, and again, that's fine. But I think it's at the minimum worth investigating. I mean, I love, like, when I play with Oasis or whatever, I have all my music in there. I can change the order of it. It 99.9% works absolutely flawlessly. I find it makes me so much more efficient in what I do, and really takes a lot of the worry out of it. And then certainly with the iPad Pro, I'll just say, because I actually had the original iPad before, the Pro is considerably bigger and is really the size of an actual piece of paper, unless you're playing some kind of oversized new music or something like that, I suppose. But I'd say for 90% of the music that I play, it's fine. And from a jazz side, too, I love not having to haul my fake book around. I actually had to buy two of them. Remember those big sort of thick things? And yeah, one of them, I was missing the charts from A to B, and the other one was like, I was missing W to the end. And so I had to haul two around, and it was just a matter of time. So
over here, I've got an entire shelf full of them, but now they're all on my pad, man. And with this, my experience, last year I went ahead and I was lucky enough to play the Mackey Soprano Saxophone Concerto, and did that with the Desert Winds. But I did the entire performance on my iPad Pro. Just I found some of those page turns to be just way too fast, and having the foot pedal wasn't a bad thing. It just made it real easy, nice light touch. Just went on. That piece is stressful enough.
Oh, for sure. And it's exactly why I like it. And one of the things too, which is pretty cool, is the annotation feature. And so you can add in cues and all these things. And of course, you can do that on paper as well. The only thing is, what if you lose that piece of paper? So one thing I do, just as a backup, through the Fourscore app that I'm sure we both use, when it's fully annotated, I back it up to Dropbox. So if, for example, a meteor hit my iPad or whatever, some very strange thing, I mean, I couldn't use it, I've got exactly as I want it, annotations and all, and I could, if I wanted, simply print it or download it or view it on another device. I'm sorry, I'll get on mic. I have a brief story. Folks, if you're going to get an iPad Pro, I just have to warn you, it is bigger. So the weight is a little bit more, and my students right now know what I'm talking about, because I was sitting in quartet at UNLV, and here I am teaching, and here we are. I'm reading the score off my iPad Pro. I'm really excited, and the stand was not secure. And it just went end over end without me even touching it, and took a nosedive, and found out that it pays to have Apple Pay or some type of, because I did not have it, which is there. So I do suggest, if you get it, get some type of protective. And I have gotten this what is it? I am not sponsored by them. I don't know, New Trent thing, where it's actually got a hand, like a hand in the, like you little spot leather strap for your hand to go through, and it's amazing how versatile it is. So I don't trust stands anymore. I just go ahead and have it in my hand, and then when I play, when it's me playing, I make sure that stand is secure. But hey, it's just
part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, it's similar to the loopy case actually that a lot of iPhone people have now too, which just so you don't drop it. Yeah, I remember when I had one of the older iPads, it inevitably fell and was never quite the same, never recovered, wasn't able to hook into Wi-Fi. Something broke, so that became my son's iPad because I could still play games just fine. But yeah, so. That was definitely around the time. I think I got one more normal iPad because the Pro wasn't, it was sort of rumored at that time. So I had one more generation, maybe the Air or something like that. And now I have, there's just no way I could go back as well. And I would also say, by the way, Microsoft has some good products too. The Surface tablet, a lot of people like that and works just fine as well. I think a friend of mine who has that told me it's more difficult for whatever reason to connect the Bluetooth to it, particularly with AirTurn, but there's other pedals out there that will work. But for me, I mean, everyone's got, they're either Android or Apple usually. I'm happy in my little Apple universe, and things seem to play nicely together. So I'll stay with that.
Yeah, I've got to admit that I do love the Apple. That has been. I tried a little far away, to go away from it for a little bit, and that was unsuccessful. So it just works for my brain, and that's probably some PC guys out there going, yeah, there ain't no way I'm going to get on a Mac because of the same reason. It just doesn't work for your brain. That's good, and I think I'm gonna for now, Dave, do you want to just do something real quick? Do you want to bounce back and forth and just share a few, since we're on this. We're on the what actually helps saxophone technology that helps. To me, apps are some of the most the biggest things out there that is really useful. That's helping us today. So. Do you have an app you want to start with?
Yeah, I'll let you talk about Fourscore a little bit because that's sort of a low-hanging fruit thing. One of the things that I like is the Amazing Slowdowner app, which is basically a terrific way for both jazz musicians and classical musicians, I think, to slow down music that they want to play along with. Let's say Tableau 5, because it's usually pretty fast. And if they want to play along with the recording they like in terms of mimicking style and vibrato and all these things that we shoot for, but we don't maybe have it up to 152 or 144, it will slow it down, but it will not affect the pitch. And frankly, it sounds great at 80% as it does at 100%. And it can also go the other way too. You can, if you want to go faster, you can speed it up even more. So I find from the classical side, and we talk so much about classical transcription as we do nearly as much on the jazz side, but I do think it can be a very valuable feature. And again, going back to that word mimicry, there's I talk to my students about, mimic, what does Claude DeLong do here? Or what does Fermot or any number of great saxophonists? I think that can be helpful. On the jazz side, of course, it's obvious if you're transcribing Camwell Adderley or Michael Brecker or, list goes on and on and on. Super fast. It can just really save a lot of time. It won't do the work for you. Of course, you've got to get your ear and you've got to put it on your horn and all of that. But I remember when I was an undergrad and working on, I had this Sony Discman and having to go back for a 3-second spot, and it was the process was frustrating, and I don't think that I would have. That I gained anything particularly by having to listen in real time at 100%. Did I get better at that? Yeah, sure I did. Would I have been more efficient and possibly being able to do more transcriptions with this process? I think I probably would have. So certainly I use that now for transcriptions that I work or that my students work on. But I would also say it's one of the more expensive apps there is. It's around $15. But I think it's worth it, to be quite honest with you. And I have a good friend of mine, Michael Schultz, who has, instead of, you have to buy such and such textbooks that he puts on his Saxophone Studio syllabus, he just has a number of apps. You have to have this tuning app, the Slowdowner app. You have to have, he's got about 4 or 5 of them. And frankly, there's been no complaints at all from members of his studio. And I think it's definitely the future if not here already.
Okay, if we're gonna talk about cost, let's. I mean, right now we could do that. I started this process of slowing down when I was in high school and college using a Marantz tape recorder, like old, just taking the tape and slowing it down. And with the tape, a lot of times it might have kept the actual pitch close, but it certainly did tremendous damage to the tone. And so, but yeah, but those were expensive devices. I remember that being $300-400, I think, at that time. And so we now have these multi-purpose smartphones and smart devices. And so now we get the core, and then we spend $15. That's almost nothing in comparison to some of the investment early on. I mean, one of the things I'll bring up right now is
Dr. Beat.
Old Dr. Beat.
Yeah.
BB88. This is the one from high school, and I'm even going to show. I got a nice little flap for my because I lost the cover to my battery years ago, and so it's well used, but it still works. But then I just, for a metronome, I just like using a couple of different things. But I'm just going to say the Frozen Ape Tempo. I'm sure some of you have used this before. Pretty much does every single functionality of the Dr. Beat, but has absolutely. It's so much easier to navigate, and that's what I'm finding with a lot of these devices, is that in comparison to their firmware, it's just an awful lot easier.
Oh yeah, and it can be absolutely. I remember when Dr. Beats were out, that was sort of like the mark of a serious musician. He spent $120. He must be really into his time, and it was almost like a status symbol. Now it's just great. Everything's in your phone, or everything's in your iPad or whatever you have, and I think that's great. Speaking of that, tuners and metronomes, the ones I like a lot of people have tonal energy, which is cool, especially for the visualization. My favorite is actually tunable, particularly for working on vibrato. I think it's probably the best way to visualize and keep your vibrato centered and in tune, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. I think probably of all my music apps, outside of Fourscore, Tunable is way up on the list of what I use.
I agree. Used that with a student the other day, and the visual aspect really, they didn't get a noticeable vibrato, so you could see the waveform and how the pitch was actually undulating, and it was barely there, and they went, oh wow, I thought I was doing more than that, and just being able to visually see that is a huge impact, and so I highly recommend it as well. Tonal energy, I just want to piggyback on that a little bit, because first of all, I love the fact that it smiles at you when you're in tune, which is always fun to see. And then I love the fact that it has both apps have the ability to go from equal temperament into another tuning scenario, and the one I of course use is just intonation. And when you plug on the tone generator, you actually can get a saxophone sound in multiple ranges. I don't know about you, but I also, when I was in college, I used the tuning CD to play with. And when I did that tuning CD, it was a set fixed range. So there were a couple of the keys that actually hit my alto saxophone really well, and it was good fundamental. And then for a couple of the keys, it really wasn't a great fundamental for me. So now I can actually choose the octaves and ranges in the sounding source, and and the other thing is I love the analyzer of the waveform and the overtones. It's so fun to be able to show a student, hey, look, your overtones, look at mine, and what I'm trying to get, and look at what you're getting, like basic, and it's they can visually see the depth of their tone. I appreciate that. I think it's a huge tool.
Yeah, especially when you're going back and forth. Okay, this is how I want you to be, and look at how my vibrato shows and visualizes, and now look at yours. So let's talk about how we can change that too. And one thing that I use actually a lot is having students listen to themselves. I say, every 1 or 2 practice sessions, sort of at a minimum, record something on your phone. And we talk about the difference between subjective listening, which is sort of my take is, well, when you're playing, how does it sound when you're playing? But oftentimes, it's helpful to get an objective sense. So you'll play it right back, play whatever the section, a large section, small section, and listen to it. And I think that is a very, very helpful thing. I remember we used to have mini disc players back when I was in UNC. That is another sort of technology that has left us, but
some of the functionality of even getting it transferred was not as helpful as one would like.
Yeah, it was such a pain. But I mean, if you got the right mic, it sounded great, and it really was a very popular thing in the early 2000s. And so that has left us. But I remember starting really seriously, sort of recording myself either at gigs or in a practice session, and just listening intently for, am I doing? And I go down the checklist of all the things that were important to me at that time. So now it's easy.
And I do want to point out that the Tonal Energy Tuner has that recorder on it, but not only does it have the recorder, you can actually, just like the Amazing Slowdowner, now you can actually slow it down to 40% and hear that articulation. Was it? I've been finding that in some of the active articulation, did it happen immediately, or was there kind of a double? And you can actually see that happen as the time is spread out a little bit. So it's kind of that's one thing about these tools, is that you have them, but do you really know how to maximize the tool to really help you? Because the more levels you get into, it's just actually the more levels of reality of having to own, well, that's not quite there. And,
well, exactly. One of the most humbling things is you play something you think well, and then slow it down on one of these apps to 50%, and you really get a sense of how accurate you are. And I remember sort of being even more impressed, if it's possible, with some of the Brecker solos. You slow it down to 50, 40%, and they're still perfectly in time. And just, boy, that's just sets the bar high, and that's what we're all shooting for.
Exactly. Is there, now we talked a lot about that. I'll just say this, you mentioned the low-hanging fruit, the Fourscore app. What I like, all in all, you can import your library or other in PDF form into the app. It is some of the functionality of actually doing like Dave was saying, like some of the editing and writing things in is very easy. You can either do some written text or actually just use like a highlighter it's all functionality as far as all of that. It's very, very easy to do so. I think even in performance with you can actually set a metronome and timing and actually if it's in the same tempo, it could once you start, if you're on a click track kind of way, it will actually turn the pages on its own if you set up that way. So it's kind of I wouldn't say for the classical that's probably not the best route to go, but maybe that ends up being something that if you've got a jazz chart or something that's maybe going to hold time a little bit more, that because I would hate to have a page turn automatically without my approval.
Yeah, but I'll just share a brief story. Two summers ago, I went to Idaho. My family often goes to Idaho, fairly remote, rural, beautiful place. But I couldn't bring a lot of my tech or anything. But I had the internet at the house and I had my iPad Pro. And I was working on this new piece by Steve Elias called Scallywag, which is and there's pretty, for me, some challenging parts that I really needed to practice. And one of the most useful things is that on Fourscore, he sent me the MIDI file, and through Fourscore, I had my headphones on, my Bluetooth plugged in, and the whole deal, and I could have that MIDI play the file at either 50%, 75%, or eventually 100% when I learned it enough. And boy, that just made, again, I think the point of the day was efficiency. And I've worked on that piece with some students, and to be able to, 5/16 bars that don't stretch or over compress, things like that, it makes it so much quicker to get to the end point. And it was all, my system right there, and worked beautifully. And now I have a lot of my scores that are in that. For example, Bresnik, particularly Bresnik, Everything Must Go Movement 2, which I practice still quite a lot. You can sync it, or basically have as connected to that file an audio file, which I find useful, and play along with it. It's all interconnected, and I think the most important thing to take away from this is it's easy. It's not difficult at all to do. So for anyone that's sort of on the fence, or maybe it's not for me, maybe it's too hard, well, just take out the "it's too hard" thing entirely, because it's really not, and it's worth the effort to check it out and see if it helps you. For me, it's been fabulous. I'm not, of course, saying that it's the only way to do it. Clearly not. I know many great musicians who are sort of old school in the sense that I just give me the piece of paper and a metronome from 20 years ago, and they do a outstanding job too. But for me, I find it just helps me to get the job done sooner and more efficiently.
Yeah, and that's the name of the game these days, because so much of what we do is even time sensitive, even with demands that we have. And I will say this: technology, in learning it, you brought up, that just get on it and just go ahead and just do it. And I find for myself that there's a fun process in it. I'm an explorer. I like researching. Oh, what can this do? I download a new app. I'm like, try to get through all the functionality, and I just like to geek out. I mean, I'm a huge geek when it comes to this, and I love checking out the settings. Like, oh, what can I change? Oh, I could change this to 426. Awesome. Let's see what tuning in 426 is.
Yeah.
And so you do these kind of things, but sometimes that just takes a little bit of time. And some people say that I don't have time. Well, I say these days that some of the knowledge is so important to our younger generation that we're bringing up, that they're probably going to discover it on their own in some way, shape, or form. And so just by introducing it to them, there's a good chance that they're going to run with it and probably blow your mind with how much they use it, and because we all know that process. Yeah. And so I want to talk about a couple of others real quick. Is Dave, you probably use this quite a bit, is the iReal Pro.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, actually. Yeah, absolutely. It's particularly for jazz players. It comes with sort of a few stock tunes, and then you quickly go to the free forums, which it shows you how to do, and download, I think, 1,200 jazz tunes, and there's pop tunes, and really whatever you could imagine and want. But I got just the 1,200 standards. Again, easy to do, free. And I use that a lot. I'll either use that with a student if we're practicing, a standard, or we'll just have it, or I'll have it on my actual fakebook PDF. But yeah, I like the iReal Pro approach, particularly because you can edit it so much. You can change the tempo, change the style. You can have it loop a section. For example, I use that a lot with a student of mine on Giant Steps. On the first 2 lines of that, just working on those sort of altered progressions, which can be very helpful. And then also, for example, I have a student that we're working on Cherokee in all 12 keys. And so we started actually with the Aebersold Burnin', what is it, volume 61, and went through that, which is fine. However, I think that's marked at 268, and you get to a point, hopefully, where you want to go a little bit faster than that, because 268 in terms of Burnin' is relatively slow. So usually we're looking closer to the 300 range. So you can set that up very easily and sort of make it more challenging, or have it do just the difficult keys. For example, D flat and F sharp and B or whatever that is. So, iReal Pro I think is absolute essential for really any jazz educator today.
Me too. I just any student that I've had just goes on the rabbit hole and absolutely loves it, and it's just it is a fantastic way to be able to experience, because I do love the ability to be able to speed it up, slow it down. I mean, it may be a MIDI rhythm section, but it's well put together in a lot of ways.
As a learning tool, it's fantastic. I will say, too, the other thing I use in addition to that is actually just on the YouTube. If there's a great series called, if you type in YouTube Jazz Play Along, and then you put the name of a tune, they've got just about any standard you can think of, and it's real guys playing, sounds great. So oftentimes with my students, I'll have that playing in the background, and we'll be reading the music off of the iPad as well. So, but terrific resource out there for you.
Beautiful. I think I'm going to check that out when we get done. That sounds nice. I can't believe I haven't run across that yet. And so now we've talked a lot about apps, and I think everybody's definitely got the point. I think we got a lot of heads nodding along with us on this. I think there's probably a few people that goes. There's a few apps that's probably going to be new for them, and they're immediately. Well, it's probably already on your phone because you've been listening and you're already downloading. So here's the next thing is let's get back to some of the more. I'm not going to say complicated, but there are some more larger programs that are going to help us to do some more production on a little more grander scale and a little more professional looking scale or sounding scale. And so, David, you mentioned Premiere Pro, and so have you had any work with what is it, that Mac version of Final Cut Pro as well?
Yeah, I was choosing between that as well as Adobe, and frankly my school had a license for Adobe, so that's why I went with them. I think they're both excellent. They're both clearly more powerful than sort of the stock iMovie, although but certainly better than nothing. And the newest version of iMovie, you can do lots of things, but it always has a sort of iMovie look to it, particularly in terms of titling. You have far less control about that. So so Final Cut or Adobe Pro, both of which are very, very powerful programs that they frankly make movies out of. And there's, I'll just speak about Adobe since that's what I use the most. But there's a great amount of control in both the audio and the video. So there's a whole audio suite of effects you can add, or EQ adjustments, and frankly everything that you would need. Now it's in terms of editing, I think I would use something like Logic or Pro Tools for that, and then just import that in there. But if you just need like small cuts, small adjustments, it does a great job. Video is clearly the thing that it's very powerful. Whether it's just simply simplistic things such as brightening and contrast, clipping, and then you can get to more frankly fun things such as the Ken Burns effect, right, which is used most famously by him in the documentaries, either on still footage, where it's sort of, even if you have, let's say, a single camera, you can give the appearance of zooming in or left and right, panning. And boy, I have to say, from a visual standpoint, it's so much more interesting to look at with that. And then, of course, it can handle, frankly, as many cameras as you care to put up in an event. I've had, sort of just for fun, really, maybe air quotes fun. I think I've done recitals where I was already thinking of the post-production, and I probably had 8 or 9 cameras just scattered around. My wife got me a drone for Christmas. And, sort of half joking, I thought, well, this is great. I can now have an aerial shot of my recital, and I just need someone to control the drone. And then, of course, it got lost in a tree for like a month because I'm a relatively inexperienced drone pilot, and it was a very gusty day, and and it ended up 100 foot in a tree. So of course, I've had to rethink that whole idea. And of course, it's probably a little bit annoying having a drone hanging above you for the audience. So perhaps I won't do that. But yeah, it's certainly it's certainly fun.
It could be the lottery. I mean, you could attach. Hey, if the drone falls, you win a free CD. There you go.
Yeah, and then if the drone accidentally hits and injures you, I'll give you 2. Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay. So now that brings up a topic: post-production. So what I have found is that where the learning curve happens on these programs is that you want something to happen, you look at it and you go, okay, this is what I want. And then you look at the screen and it's just this process of having to dig through, okay, is that what it is? And then going through all the different icons in the program, because there are so many. Because when you're dealing with some of these programs, it's a little more meaty, so they have more options, meaning more things to go through. It's not so user friendly, and so I in that process, I think where I'm going is what have you done in your experimentation and found about that post-production time and what can people expect in post, and what should they do to maybe get started so that, like, okay, let's not start by doing 8 shots and try it that experimentation all at once. Would you agree?
Exactly, and frankly, when I teach this course, which I do, we have to start at a place where everyone can be successful, and it's very much a gradual. We can do this, and then we're going to do this, and then just and by the end of the first week, they're off and running. But yeah, and I'll say too, I'm completely self-taught in Adobe Pro, and largely I think successful now in it. Mostly just because I stuck with it. It is a bit of a learning curve, but again, sort of selfishly speaking, it was like, well, this is about me. I want to showcase myself in the best possible light, and so that was the motivation I had to keep going. Of course, there's a million options that you can do. Half of the program, if not more, I probably never bother with, but I found once you get sort of past the first, okay, so this file, you drag it to here, and then that happens. Once you get past the elemental stuff, which take maybe an hour, maybe even less than that, then I found the thing that was helpful to me was I went and looked at videos that I admired, like Richie Hawley's videos, or for example, Sarah Chang or Hilary Hahn. They always have these lovely, beautiful videos to look at. And I sort of made a list to myself of all the things that I liked about them, and thought, okay, well, how would I do that from a technical perspective? How do I do that? And I'm happy to say both Adobe itself, plus there's a few other video editing YouTube channels, have fantastic tutorials, and it's as simple as just putting in Adobe Premiere Pro, and then, for example, Ken Burns effect, or whatever it is, brightness, contrast, or color adjustment, or I probably had maybe 10 to 15 things when I was starting out of like, I want to do this, and you'd be surprised by how good those tutorial videos are, and 2, how quickly you can master those, and it looks significantly more professional than it would otherwise. So I think that's probably the most helpful thing I could suggest.
Awesome. At UNLV, we actually have, I keep on telling my students, this is just such a huge help, is we have access to lynda.com. And I don't know if you've ever watched videos on lynda.com, but I have found some of the production value and the structure of their teaching and understandability to be quite a bit more. Now, this is speaking for students and teachers out there that happen. Your university may have an account. It does cost money, and so therefore, if that's something that you want to check out, I think I would go in and see if that's accessible to you. If not, there is you may still want to be on the free side, because I do believe it's a little bit pricey per month in order to be a part, but it is a wonder. They do have some wonderful trainings. I mean, I've done a lot of like how do you do video lighting? I mean, it is amazing to start thinking about all this. But as you start going, all of a sudden you start becoming some of the people that ends up. Because you're wanting to do it with such a high quality. I mean, we're used to that in saxophone realm because we with our playing, as you said, Dave, if you don't have a solid musical product, it's not worth producing. And so if we're used to having to work on this with such a high degree that then you take that same exact determination to what you want the video or whatever audio presentation that you have, and you start finding that you're even more skilled when you get done because of that determination than even some of the people who call themselves professionals out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I would suggest, there are a couple of videos that you could look at. One of the things that I found with myself, which kind of spurred me to do more and more, which I hope are interesting things, is I got to the point where I started getting bored with my videos. So it was like, okay, well, I've done this on 4 pieces. What's something else I could do? And so there's the famous Bach G minor fugue. Boo ba da ba do ba da ba do ba da. And I'd recorded that earlier on a CD of mine, Bach Centric. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I could create 3 brothers that look somehow identical twins of mine, and I could be able to make it look like we're playing at the same time in the same hall. And so it was a great sort of challenge for me to try and see if I could pull this off. And so if anyone's interested, you can just go on my YouTube channel and just look for basically the only video that has 4 of me playing. And it's good fun, and it looks great. And I think most people will be like, how does he do that? And anyway, so another example of that would be Jun Watabe, who is a friend of mine, teaches now in Colorado, in Mesa. And he actually recorded Glint, and he's a great saxophonist as well as clarinetist. And and he basically multicammed himself playing both parts. So you could search Jun Watabe Glint on YouTube, and you'll see him seamlessly doing both clarinet and sax. And it's another really interesting example of how to stick out and to again, it comes back to there's so many recordings of all the standard rep. Do we need another single cam version of Tableau? I don't know if we do. So unless there's a significant musical difference or some kind of unique aspect, to me, my brain starts to go, well, how do I show myself for this? How do I be different than everybody else in at very least the visual standpoint?
That's a great point. And I think, well, isn't that interesting? I hope there's somebody out there listening right now that's going, oh, so maybe we can do the standards again. We just need a different presentation, something unique, something that makes that particular moment different. Well, I mean, have fun with that rabbit hole. That'll be awesome, and look forward to seeing it. Musicians are a creative bunch, though. Right.
And I think again, the music has to be worth the effort, of course. So there's no getting around that. But yeah, I found my creative side really being utilized, and I'll go to bed thinking of how I can change an angle, or I find it's sort of opened up this other realm of creativity for me, just of how thinking less narrowly. Typically we're always sort of recital focused or whatever we're playing rep for. And I think so. There's that. Obviously, we got to take care of that. But then there's the post-production. What are we going to do with this? So it's not either just a memory in time that is never to be heard from again, or how do we share this with the world in a way that's unique and different and puts us in a positive light.
Great. Well, you mentioned before Logic and also Pro Tools.
Pro Tools, yeah.
We're those are digital audio workstations, or better known as DAWs. And for us, in a lot of audio editing, for me right now for the podcast, this is clearly, I use Logic Pro. I love it. I know it. It's so. I had to spend hours watching some of those tutorial videos to really get around. But when it comes down to learning the finer tools of why you compress, why you add a little bit of delay on something, or a little bit of reverb, how much reverb is appropriate. I can't tell you, Dave, how many classical saxophone recordings I've heard that it's like, oh, well, we'll just put a saxophone in this boomy room on the mic, and then you just add like 8 seconds of reverb and it's all good, right?
No. No, that is not how it should work. But there are recordings that are like that. I've heard that. We don't need to name names or anything, but yeah, they do exist. And yeah, it's funny. A little bit of prep and sort of knowledge of that can make such a difference.
Yeah, huge difference. And one of the things I just want to say is, what do you want to focus your post-production, and this goes for the video and for the audio, from what I've gathered, is that everything is about the capture. You can do an awful lot in post, but if your capture is not quality, then your post becomes significantly more difficult and more labor intensive and involved.
Yeah, especially, for example, wrong notes or an intonation issue. Yeah, I mean, you can fix that, but then it also depends on how much separation you get. For example, if you're playing with a chamber ensemble, and your flat 20 cents, well, you can probably raise that, but it's not going to be noticeable because everyone else is going to go up. So, yeah, things can be done, and the more control you have over that, then that's certainly possible. But there is a practical limit to that as well. I mean, there's just no way to escape not playing well.
Right.
I mean, it always comes down to that.
And I'm even going to bring not even just the playing. Your playing's fine, but then all of a sudden your mic angle happens to be the pattern of the microphone. And if you don't know what that is, you probably should look into that. The pattern of the microphone is so wide and it's angled a little bit up that it actually captures the sound of the reed buzz next to your mouth, rather than actually just capturing what's happening in the body of the instrument. If you get that reed buzz, you're gonna have to drop your you're gonna have to do a high pass and drop that a lot of those high frequencies out, which is gonna cut down on your overtones and a lot of other things that happen to be up there. And when you start listening to some recordings, it's so funny. I can be like, oh, well, that person forgot to angle the microphone down. And it's just as simple as that. Or maybe it's just too close and all we hear is a bunch of keys. And so,
yeah. Key clicks or heavy breathing, that's something that I notice right away. Yeah.
So I think I have to say, watch your capture, watch what you're trying to get out of it, because just by even moving the mic simply even 6 inches, 1 foot away, or angling it just by a couple of degrees can make all the difference in the world. And for that, just make sure that you record several samples of where that's at, pre-record, to get your best capture.
Yeah, and I would just say I'm in the habit of trying to record dress rehearsals. Let's say you're there with your pianist half an hour before, so you can have that on. I mean, that's the time when you can really listen and learn, are the mics in the right place. Plus, you know, it's sometimes helpful if you want to capture some footage of, let's say you bombed the last note, you know, in the Glazunov or something. If you've got it from a previous take in the similar hall, or well, the same hall, ideally. Yeah, right. You know, then you could, I suppose, make some of those post-production changes if needed. But so definitely, it's those are all good options to have.
Wow, and so we've got the audio, we've got the video. Is there any larger piece of kind of technology that you've been working with that may be really helpful? I mean.
Well, outside of programs like Max MSP, which are useful for some particularly pieces where the performer gets to improvise a little bit, I think that's another realm. There's some really interesting pieces that have been using that. So and a lot of contemporary pieces too. If you listen to some of those players who really focus on that side, the Max MSP contemporary saxophone stuff can be very cool to check out. So that can really work as well.
Cool. And I think if you get into that Max MSP, I did have a piece that was written for me using that program. That once you get into that realm, that's a whole nother rabbit trail of amazing different tools and ways that it can shape your sounds and do some things well worth the exploration.
Yeah, and one thing I would just say from going to some World Saxophone Congresses, people are starting to do things with lighting and being almost choreography and a variety. So some pieces really call for that. I think if you play a standard tonal piece, then that's not necessarily going to be as interesting, perhaps. But I think sometimes it's a revisiting of pieces that maybe have been around for 50 years. For example, I remember being in Colorado, and my teacher at the time played Tableau de Provence, which, as we know, is standard of all standard rep pieces. But he'd actually traveled to Provence for, I think, a sabbatical, and so his backdrop with all these the 5 different movements was pictures that were specifically from those areas. And so having sometimes a video aspect too. I've done several pieces that use video and huge video backdrops behind me, and there's one by Arvo Part, Mirror and Mirror, Spiegel and Spiegel, where I created a video background, which I think ideally and hopefully the audience thought it was a more of an interesting overall presentation. And I've worked with a composer, Ron Albrecht, who I work with here at Simpson, has written me several pieces which were designed basically soundscapes on computer, and to which I added a background video as well. So just to sort of be more immersive in that atmosphere. And I think when you're planning recital rep, having one piece that's sort of like that or with video, I think can be a really interesting foil to some of the other aspects or the other pieces that will be on your program.
Love it. Absolutely. Yeah. And part of these presentations, I mean, I've seen like some of the video presentations behind, like, say, a Jacob Taylor's or some other type of work that for our generation, yes, that means that we do have to work a little bit more, but at the same rate, we understand it seems like the entire complete media experience, and anybody that seems to delve into that seems to capture certainly it seems a different interest. And so while we're in academia and we are exploring that, I mean, I know for a fact that I've seen a few at UNLV like this, that it's always a welcome addition to the onslaught of recital after recital after recital, and very nice, very, very, very well received. And by the way, I am going to say it's still not an excuse for playing poorly. Don't spend too much time on the video production if you just gotta play and haven't figured out how to play in tune yet. So
Yeah, absolutely. But speaking of Jacob TV, pieces like Grab It or Billy are two that come to my mind. And stuff like Garden of Love. I don't think I've ever seen a video to that, but boy, it would be it'd be great. Somebody do that.
It's picturesque and the poem that's used. It's just and maybe that's part of it is that the imagination can really go. So there's a challenge. Somebody do a nice video presentation of that.
And let us know about it.
And let us know
Absolutely.
about it. Yeah. And speaking to that, when I just did this solo episode, this last episode, and I made mention that we need to start sharing each other's work and start helping to digitally start promoting the saxophone in a way that is impactful, where we can actually see some quality things. Now, Dave, you might be able to help us out here because you mentioned some videos that are of interest that can draw interest to saxophone. Now, I'm not talking about just to the saxophone community, promoting to the saxophone community. I'm actually saying to the people that really matter, the people who pay to go to concerts and appreciate classical saxophone. And as we're developing these things and putting them out there, some of what we talked about today is explorations and getting some exercises done. But when we have finished products, I think it would be really cool to start seeing some of these presentations start popping up on people's walls, on their Facebook feed, their Twitter, and start showing, hey, I don't know, I think this is a great presentation, great job. Everybody should check this out. So we at the Modern Saxophonist want to start doing that. Start really digging in and sharing. So what I'm going to charge our listeners with is, I would love for you, if you have done work in this way that involves a little, some sort of presentation on video and audio that's impactful, that is going to grab our attention, we would love to share it. And so I would love for you to just send me the link, or go ahead and copy and paste it into the Modern Saxophonist community, and see what we can, or just even on Twitter, just tag us in there. And we'll go ahead and make sure that we share it, we forward it, and we would love to start really creating a culture that we promote. I think what it'll do, and I'm just kind of going on a limb here, Dave, but I think if we all started actually promoting each other and everything else, I think it may actually foster a greater enthusiasm for doing some of the work that you're talking about, Dave, because then that means that there's some people that are actually responding to it. There's a demand for it.
I think so too, and we all, as studio teachers, we all have repertoire lists that we give to people, and soprano, alto, tenor, quartet, whatever. And to my shame, I suppose, I actually don't have a listing of sort of multimedia pieces, and I think that would be a great resource to have for that. Pieces that use technology in some way. I think that should start popping up more, and I think it'd be helpful if there could be sort of a unified either website or part of a website or Facebook group or something like that where people can go to as the resource and say, I want to do something with video, something a little bit different than that uses technology on my recital. Are there 20 examples that I have links and I could kind of check out and ideally use for my recital? I think that's a very noble and frankly helpful thing that we as saxophonists could have.
It's out there. How about this? We're going to make sure that there's some sort of format for delivery that we can do this. Modern Saxophonist has a YouTube page. I know this. If it's in YouTube format, we'll just go ahead and like or follow that video or subscribe to your your channel and put that out there, but or favorite the video, we'll create a whole new folder or something like that. We can do that, but also maybe it is in a Facebook format where it's just an open community where we can actually share. So we'll keep everybody informed about that formal, delivery of that. As far as a list concerned, my gosh, that would be amazing to start developing multimedia pieces that are already written and structured in that way. So I know I would love it. I would actually really love to start making that part of a semester. Once we're really there, is be able to my students to be able to incorporate that as a very standard thing, because we're there. I mean, that's basically what's happening. I mean, we have our iPhone. I mean, you think about the camera on the iPhone and just how clear it is in comparison to even some of the DSLRs that are out there. So DSLRs, and so you look at that and you go, well, man, we can do a lot with an iPhone. And so I even said in my last master class, I was like, guys, you're in Las Vegas. You've got one of the best recognizable backdrops in the entire world. And I just challenge you to use it. Go out there, stand in front of the Bellagio fountains, and do like a 30-second clip of you playing through the ahead of a tune, or playing along with what's happening, or just whatever. And for the sake of it, like what does that do? But for everybody else, what's your backdrop? What do you have? I mean, I don't know, Dave. What do you got there in Iowa there?
Well, I don't play many pieces about corn or soybeans, but sometimes it's easy. I recorded, I think I don't know, on some CD of mine, New York Counterpoint. And I made a video part to it, and I assembled a whole bunch of New York footage. And so if people are interested, that's exactly the sort of idea from, at least on the post-production side of it, for sure. And really sort of, you can have a piece that is highly identified with that or designed for that, or you can sort of adapt. As I said earlier about, tableau de Provence, that would be an easy thing to do. Sometimes, I think certain pieces work better than others. Sometimes it's a piece. For example, I'm not sure what I would do with Gakowski-Briand, so I might just simply play it. And, sometimes minimalist is okay. But again, I think when it comes to assembling a recital program, I think that's when you can really give it some thought of, well, how can I create foils? How does this program work together? I go back to myself trying to have at least one piece with video and one piece with some kind of immersive technology, in addition to just a straight up piece for sax and piano or something like that. Ideally, it's nice to have a chamber piece or to have another instrument join you for a piece as well. So,
love it. I mean, my brain is going to even colors that happen to be in a like either a Chelsea or maybe even a Nota piece. What you can do with the colors, with the lighting and the video production, even just to like. Just to enhance it. I mean,
well, and speaking of Nota, one of the things that I do, I like playing Nota 3 recitals, and even just playing into the piano with somebody pressing the sustain pedal down creates this amazing plethora of colors, which is so cool. And they just hang. It's like the ultimate reverb, and it just sort of lingers in the hall. And is that I like that. Yeah.
I like that too. It's kind of reminds me of room that I've taught a few lessons in, that there's a harp in it. So I get all the sympathetic vibrations no matter which way you look at it in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I love that. These and these are kind of some of the thoughts of I think our listeners right now are, some of them like my students, they tend to be worried about nuts and bolts and whether something's in tune, whether their finger got down in the right place, and rightfully so. They should be thinking about that. However, I find that in what happened in our conversation is that there's more creativity, there's more variety, and more things that can happen, and to supplement this. And I actually have to say, any student of mine that's ever ventured in this direction of doing an extra presentation, something extra special that makes that moment completely unique, I've noticed that there's a significant amount of appreciation and for that person a kind of a marking point that happens for them. And so if you venture into it, I think it will drive you even more to raise your quality. And I think that's part of it, is more complete performances. And maybe by adding one of these components, it may be a secret to unlocking that for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end it, Mark. I think it's very, audience friendly, and again, opens up sort of another creative aspect to connect with people through music. So let's do it.
Wonderful. Well, hey, this has been a fantastic time, Dave, and I'm so glad we're doing some of the video. And in fact, I just want to point everybody to look us up on YouTube. And we have a YouTube channel, and this video will actually be on YouTube. You can see me in my Hawaiian shirt. And Dave, as we finish, I must reveal.
Oh no. Oh, well, yes, this is an old sore wound of ours back to 2004, where my team did win the Stanley Cup, but was denied by fate and the gods. So,
yes.
Yeah, well, ending on a high, here we go.
Oh, man, you're such a good sport. And, well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Check out our YouTube page, and also make sure you subscribe. We'd like to, we're going to take this video challenge. Just some things that'll be popping up, and hopefully we can supply some of this new interesting ways of presenting saxophone, and really look forward to hearing from all of you in some of the presentations that you've done. And of course, follow us on Twitter at The Modern Sax, like us on Facebook, and then also make sure that you have subscribed to the to our podcast, so you make sure you get the updates. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Dave.
It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Mark. Thanks.
And let's get practicing.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Modern Saxophonist Podcast. You can find us at www.themodernsaxophonist.com. We're also on Twitter at The Modern Sax.